Hey, my name is Drew. Welcome to Overlake Student Ministries. We are creating a safe place where every student is loved, known, heard, supported, and challenged.
Loved, known, heard, supported, and challenged.
Hey, I'm Will, and here at SM, we make sure that every student is loved, known, heard, supported, and challenged.
What's up, SM?
What's up, SM? It is so nice to be with you. We are diving into another group life. It's going to be amazing. Jody is sharing with us, and you might be in person. That might be a new situation for you, or you are online, which is also in person here through the internet.
That's crazy.
And so I'm so excited about it. And we got some good stuff going on.
Yeah, we are kicking off a new series tonight. It's called Like Me.
Like Me.
We got 3 weeks in this. So excited to get in the Bible, see what God says about us, and hope you're excited too.
It's going to be some good stuff. And right around this time of year, Easter is coming up. And Easter is a time where we celebrate the good things that Jesus did, dying and coming back from the dead for you and I. And so it's a big celebration. That's Sunday coming up. And so we right now are gonna do a little something.
Yeah, we're gonna play an Easter game. This is gonna be a little Easter trivia. So this is what we're gonna need you to do. We're gonna ask some questions. I want you to blow it up in the chat. Let us know what you think the right answer to the questions are. And we are gonna be right back here in just a few moments with the one and only Jody Blumker, bringing week 1 of Like Me. Let's go!
Hate it when things are unfair. I remember as a teenager finding out all my friends were going to this sleepover, those fun things we did before pandemic times back in the day, and I didn't understand why I didn't get invited. Well, later I found out it was because my friend was only allowed to have 5 people and I was number 6 on the list. Rude. Not fair. Am I right? And I hated that when I was in school, I worked so hard. I completed all assignments on time. I never missed a day of school unless I was really sick, because who wants to make up all that work? And yet, I never got selected by my teachers as Student of the Month. Also rude. And I could keep on going about all the things that always felt unfair. And you know what? Today, things make it even easier to compare ourselves because there's this gift we have called social media, and it makes it even easier to see how unfair things actually feel. So all I have to do is check a Snap story, watch a TikTok video, or scroll Instagram to be reminded of the things other people are doing that I'm not a part of. They're always going on super cool vacations or learning those duet dances so easily. I think they've got the perfect family or the perfect friend group. You guys know what I'm talking about. I can go from feeling good about life to feeling like life isn't great in about 10 seconds. All of a sudden, I'm not just disappointed, I'm ticked off and super judgmental. In addition to feeling miserable when we do this, we start to assume that other people have the perfect life. We look at what they put online and then match it up to what we know is true about our current reality. And when we begin to believe their life looks better or is better than our life, we can begin to respond in ways that are not helpful. We can feel the need to keep up with what they are saying or posting, and we can become paralyzed and shy away from showing up as our real self. Or we can become filled with anxiety, jealousy, or judgment. No matter how we respond, the result is still the same. It feels bad. That's what comparison does. And here's the tricky thing about comparing our life to someone else's. We know ourselves way too well. We know the good, the bad, the happy, the sad, and we know that places like social media are designed to display the highlights of life, just the good stuff. And that's why we will do everything we can to make sure that others only see the highlight reels of our lives. We aren't going to post about the fight we just got in with our parents, but we are going to post that fire photo of ourselves that we may have taken 30 times just to make sure we have the right lighting, look, filter, angle. We've all perfected the art of projecting the life that we want others to think that we have, even if it doesn't match the life we actually have. And here's what's crazy. We forget that everyone else is doing the same thing. They're posting their best life or sharing the best parts of their life and not their real life. When we compare ourselves to others, especially on social media, we believe things about ourselves based on someone else's half-true or fake display. See, comparison has become such a norm in our culture that most of us don't even realize we're doing it. And the good news is that what we're going to talk about for the next few minutes will not only help us recognize when we're comparing ourselves, but it will also help us to understand what to do about it. So, one of the greatest teachers and followers of Jesus that ever lived was this man named Paul. You might have heard of him. He made it his mission to make sure that everyone he met knew how their lives could benefit from following Jesus. He traveled all over the known world, establishing relationships with many different groups of people in different regions who viewed him as an authority figure when it came to how to live a better life. Now, Paul traveled a lot from town to town in order to maintain relationships with people and offer them these life-changing truths of who Jesus was and what he offered. And when Paul wasn't present with the different churches he planted, he made a point to write letters to stay connected. This was kind of like his version of staying connected on Instagram or Snapchat. So in these letters, Paul was known for being pretty direct. He was passionate about following Jesus and leading others to do the same. And while everything Paul did was out of love, it's likely that sometimes people felt like they were being called out in areas where they weren't measuring up. And in response to that, they do what a lot of us do. They lashed out. They began to tear Paul down, and their strategy to feel better about themselves was to make him look worse. I mean, in a word, they were just pretty petty. So let's listen to how Paul responded to these criticisms. Oh, don't worry. We wouldn't dare say that we are as wonderful as these other men who tell you how important they are. But they are only comparing themselves with each other, using themselves as a standard of measurement. How ignorant. Now, I'm not sure, but this seems like the ancient tool of sarcasm. Paul pushed back at the critics. He wasn't messing around, and in this passage, he's addressing the comparing that's going on among people and the struggle that it created. See, Paul is saying in no uncertain terms, it's absolutely ridiculous to let your behavior in your life be based on a comparison to someone else's behavior or life. Now, there's a principle found in the book of Proverbs that Paul would have known by heart, and it says this: above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Now, Solomon, the man who wrote this principle, was passionate about how important it is to guard your heart, because what we do almost always comes from what we believe in our hearts. Our hearts matter because they control everything else. And so, like Solomon said, we should guard our hearts. And one of the quickest ways to destroy our hearts is comparison. If we post or hear a story that someone's sharing about how great their life is and we allow it to get to our hearts, it can mess with what we believe about ourselves, and it can become very dangerous. And if it makes us feel less than or worthless, it's like an attack on the heart that can ultimately mess with our whole life. That's why we have to get this right. Don't compare your worth with someone else's highlight reel. Don't look at someone else and assume that their life is perfect and conclude that your life is no good because in that moment, it doesn't look like theirs. Don't make a decision about how you look or don't look based on someone else's picture, a picture that was most likely taken 30 times, filtered, face-tuned, and edited. Don't make decisions about your worth based on what you see or perceive in other people. And while this sounds great, you might be asking, okay, but how do we actually fight the temptation to allow comparison to rule our lives? How do we guard our hearts like Solomon wisely suggested? Now, it may not be easy, but I think it starts with the very word that Solomon used, and that's guard. Set some boundaries for what you see and what you allow in your heart and what you participate in. And if something messes with you or destroys how you feel, pay attention to that and step in to give yourself a break. Here are some examples. As you guard your heart when you guard your Instagram, pay attention to how it affects you. Guard your Snapchat, guard your TikTok. Guard your thoughts when you are watching the likes roll in or not roll in fast enough. Guard the people you follow. And guard yourself when you interact with others who make you feel less than or worthless. In other words, when you find yourself in a situation, whether it's on social media or in real life, where you're more likely to compare yourselves to others, be on guard. Pay attention to what you do when you feel yourself spiraling into the comparison game. Maybe you find yourself overachieving and striving for the attention of others, and maybe you find yourself so deflated that you wonder, why do I even try? Or maybe you find yourself playing the images or words over and over again in your mind. When those things happen, pay attention. That's your clue that you're stuck in the comparison game. So when that happens, ask yourself these questions. Number one, what are the things fueling how I feel? What are some things I want to do because of how I feel? And what or who am I comparing myself to that's bringing up these feelings? We guard our hearts by paying attention to what we feel when we're tempted to play the comparison game. You aren't the only one who struggles to compare your life with someone else's, but living a life where you feel less than doesn't have to define how you feel, and it certainly doesn't need to define your worth. Remember, don't compare your worth to their highlight reel. What would it look like if you began to guard your heart when it comes to comparing your life to others? Now, we're going to head to small group, and I want to encourage you to dive into the conversation about what it can look like to encourage one another to guard your heart against the comparison trap.